Election day is here. I'm Max Alfonso live from Old Orchard Elementary.
I'm Asa Kurtlbaugh. The polls are open. What people are saying this morning as they head in to cast their ballot.
How are international students reacting to election in the US? Coming up, we'll find out why.
Your news in 10 minutes starts now. Good afternoon, I'm Nardine Lakatos.
And I'm Gavin Lake. The day America's been waiting for is finally here.
Max Alfonso joins us now live from Old Orchard Elementary polling station. So Max, have you had the chance to vote yet?
Yes, I have voted. Line was about 20 minutes when I went home to Cincinnati to vote on Friday. The line here today at Old Orchard, I've talked to people, they say it's about 45 minutes long. There are about 9 polling booths inside where voting started this morning at 6 and will continue to go tonight until 7:30. I've talked to several people today who are very happy that the election is here and very excited to cast their ballot, mainly just really excited that this election is going to be complete after today. Obviously, the presidential race, probably the most important thing for a lot of people on the ballot, but Sherrod Brown, Marcy Kaptur, Bernie Moreno, issue 1, just a bunch of things that are very important to people to vote on today. Coming up later in the newscast, Asa Kurtlbaugh spoke with voters this morning, and he will let you know what they have to say about this historic election. Reporting live from Old Orchard Elementary, I'm Max Alfonso, UT10 News.
Ahead of Election Day, Democratic Party candidates made their final push with visits across the Midwest. Belle Fahey takes us there.
In Ann Arbor, Michigan, Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz rallied supporters, emphasizing reproductive rights as a critical issue in the upcoming presidential election. Harris and Walz energized thousands of supporters to encourage voters to go to the polls early and make their voices heard. Some who voiced their concerns about the future of reproductive rights agree the issue is critical.
The most important thing on the ballot for me and lots of people is the reproductive care for women.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedoms, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly.
Issues such as the economy, healthcare, and gun violence were addressed at the rally. A small group of pro-Palestine protesters briefly interrupted Harris's speech.
I hear you. On the subject of Gaza, we all want this war to end as soon as possible and get the hostages out.
With Michigan as a key battleground state, the rally underscored the importance of reproductive rights in shaping voter decisions on Election Day. I'm Belle Fahey in Ann Arbor, Michigan, UT10 News.
In the final stretch of the campaign trail, Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance made a stop in Bedford, Pennsylvania. Hundreds of Trump and Vance supporters gathered October 30th for a glimpse of what Vance promises if elected, such as giving veterans better treatment, securing the borders, and immigration control. Others came with different issues on their mind.
As a woman, I don't like to see males, biological males, in women's sports. I was a big athlete growing up, and it's just hard to watch.
The state of the economy is an important issue for other voters.
If you're a supporter and fan like me, I love Trump. He's a businessman, great guy in my eyes. I mean, a lot of people don't like him, say he's crazy, say he don't know what he's talking about, but he's a great guy.
Vance told voters the goal is to bring back leadership the American people deserve. As Max showed us earlier, the polls are now open and voters are flowing into Old Orchard Elementary polling station.
Asa Kurtlbaugh joins us now live from the Old Orchard Elementary polling station. Asa, how have the crowds been so far?
We've been here since 6 a.m. this morning when the polls opened. And since then, there's been a steady line of people, a lot of cars coming in. It's kind of lulled since the lunchtime hour. But we asked people this morning what they had to say about the candidates, and here they are.
I would say honesty and integrity for sure, and someone whose policies would advance a common good.
When I vote for a candidate, I really look at their character, see what kind of a person they are, how they treat people. So their policies influence the way they treat people and their character in developing their policies as far as the poor, uneducated, middle class, being pro-immigrant.
Character. Maya Angelou said if someone shows you who they are, believe them. And with the 2 candidates, I believe that one candidate has shown one to be more integral than the other, And so therefore, for me, character and integrity is key.
Reminder that polls are open till 7:30 p.m. tonight. Live from Old Orchard Elementary, I'm Asa Crittlebaugh with UT10 News.
An additional property tax to support local resources is on the ballot for Ohio voters. Autumn Vasquez tells us more.
Toledo-Lucas County Public Library is asking voters to approve a $1 million bond measure that would allow the district to improve aging library buildings. The library's executive director, Jason Kuchma, says the money would go towards expanding, renovating, and updating the library's 19 branches across Lucas County.
We know that about a handful of them need some significant expansions to meet community needs. We know about a dozen of them also need just some updates to the areas and creating more accessible spaces.
Kuchma says the library also wants to expand with an additional branch in White House, Ohio. If passed, the 30-year bond issue would require the owner of a $100,000 home $3 a month or $35 per year in property taxes. While some homeowners in Lucas County are opposed to the increase in taxes to support the bond, David Brown, a homeowner in Toledo, says financially sustaining Toledo libraries will help bring the community closer together.
Well, I'm a homeowner, and my response is I'm all for issue 24. I'm all for it. Because like I said, without the library system, Toledo would be minimalized. I mean, we have to do it.
If issue 24 is passed, Kuchma says the local labor force will begin on capital construction projects as early as the second quarter of 2025. Reporting in Toledo, I'm Autumn Vasquez, UT10 News.
For students on campus, this year's election experience has been one of a kind. While many were reluctant to be interviewed about the elections, students gave foreign policy, abortion, and the economy as their big voting issues, while others cited a lack of bipartisanship and a torrent of political ads as their concern in the current political climate. But for first-time student voters, the experience was memorable.
I think Trump's ideas of being the strongest country, his idea of making America the strongest country as a whole, instead of trying to help other countries, makes him such a better candidate.
I feel like there's a lot of areas where I think both sides have struggled a lot recently and try and get power over each other instead of really being for the people.
It was actually pretty easy. Greene County, that's where I'm registered, so I went there, went to the BMV, just walked in, registered. First time voting, they rang a bell for me. Just got up to the system, clicked it, and bam.
Over 41 million members of Gen Z will be eligible to vote for this election, and whether or not they do vote could shape the results of races in key states.
With elections taking place across the U.S. today, international students at the University of Toledo are closely watching the outcome.
Jimin Park spoke with students about their reactions.
Despite not having a vote, international students are interested in what the result could mean for their future. They believe that the outcome could impact their studies, job prospects, and life in America, making this election especially relevant to them.
I'm not kind of supporting anyone because both have pros and cons. If Trump elected, I need to be prepared as way he doing about all the politics.
Some students express concern about the political climate, while others view it as a chance to gain insight into American democracy.
It also depends on what my future job is, because also the reason is like my country don't have election at all, so this really a new way to get me knowledge about US.
Some international students are closely following the immigration.
The reason why immigration comes to mind is because I'm here as a non-immigrant. So I just get interested in, what's going on.
Though they can vote, international students stay interested on election day, hoping the result will support their studies and life in US. In Toledo, I'm Jimin Park, UT10 News.
With an intense general election close to wrapping up, some people are still wondering if their vote even matters.
Quinn Cooper joins us now live from UT10 election headquarters with a look into whether a single vote makes a difference. Quinn?
According to the Federal Election Commission, about 15% of Americans don't vote, many believing their voice doesn't matter in a nationwide race. But history tells another story. It's not the first time tensions have been high between the Democratic and Republican parties.
consider the 1968 presidential election during the Vietnam War.
All of the presidencies in that Vietnam era are decided by what was going on in that moment. Like Lyndon Johnson decides not to run for president because he had started a major bombing campaign and expanded American soldiers on the ground.
With current national debates on issues including reproductive rights, foreign policy, the economy, there's a lot at stake with this election. Closer to home, there are local candidates running for different positions in Lucas County, such as Ohio Senator, House Representative, Supreme Court Judge, and other roles.
Please vote. You know, each and every one of us has that right, but not everybody exercises that privilege. And so really, please get out and vote.
So far in terms of this election, it's recorded that a record-breaking number of people has voted early before Election Day, all for the sake of having their say in the future of this country. Polls are open until 7:30 p.m. tonight, so make sure your voice is heard and to research what each candidate offers to you. Live in election headquarters, I'm Quinn Cooper, UT10 News.
Every vote matters, but there was a time when that wasn't the case.
Crystal Smith explores the history of voter rights.
The right to vote is something that many take for granted, but there was a time in history where only white males could vote. The first vote in America wouldn't come until 1787, when the Founding Fathers couldn't agree on who should be president and came up with a compromise. That consisted of selecting the president by popular vote among the masses, but people of color were not included. At that time, they were owned by white men and considered property. More than 100 years later, American social reformer Frederick Douglass said, "Slavery is not abolished until the black man has the ballot." After a long fight for equality, Thomas Mundy became the first African-American male to vote when the 15th Amendment was passed in 1870. But women still had to wait more than 50 years to get their turn at the polls. The first recorded woman to cast her ballot was 70-year-old Louisa Ann Swain of Laramie, Wyoming. This was a huge leap in history for women's rights, but women of color would still have to fight for their right to vote. Sojourner Truth, Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, and many other black female feminists had to work even harder to expose the oppressions and injustices in America. Native American women were denied their United States citizenship, so they were stripped of their legal right to vote. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act was finally passed. That would overcome legal barriers to allow all women of color to vote. Remember that when deciding whether to cast your vote today.
At the University of Toledo, I'm Crystal Smith, UT10 News.
So did you get out to vote today?
Actually, I did. I had the chance this morning before I got here. What about you?
So I actually early voted last week. Took about an hour, but I'd definitely do it again, and I recommend it to people.
Sounds excellent.
Yeah, that does it for today's UT10 News. You can catch replays of all of our newscasts on the YouTube channel, and don't forget to follow us on social media.
Tune in next Tuesday at noon for the latest news from the University of Toledo and all around Northwest Ohio. For Gavin Lake and the entire UT10 News crew, I'm Nardine Lakatos. Have a great day.